Dave the Builder on KFM with Premier Timber Frame Homes, your expert guide to self-built homes. PremierTimberFrameHomes.ie.
Yeah, it's been a while since we heard that little jingle and piece of music, but delighted that Dave McManus of Premier Timber Frame Homes is back in with us, and he's here for the next 10 weeks on Thursday mornings just after 10 o'clock for our weekly building slot. Welcome back into studio, Dave.
Thanks, Owen. Great to be back, though, to be honest.
Yeah, how's everything been? You haven't gone grey or anything now since I last saw you?
No, but I'd say I'm getting there now, you know. There's a lot of stress, as you know. But look at it now, it's all good now, in fairness. And we're busy at home, obviously, with a new baby. The time that we were on the first slot with yourself. So the baby's thriving at home and she's in great old form. But everything's very busy, you know. Yeah,
we were talking, I think the first slot that we did was around the springtime. Then I know summer was coming into your very, very busy time with the good weather and all of that. And I don't know, maybe things quietened down a little bit coming into winter, but would most people have started new builds during the summer, yeah?
Absolutely. So it's, I always kind of say it's nearly a herd mentality. Everybody wants to start in springtime, and we'll get the majority of our yearly bookings we'll get January, February, March, and we're booked out then till September, October, November, you know. So it is getting a little bit quieter now that the summer has passed us, and but we do always be putting posts up online, just letting people know if you're a bit more organised, you can get ahead of the herd, you know.
Absolutely. Well, over the next 10 weeks, we're going to be answering questions from listeners to do with doing up your house, building a new house, any issues that you might have within your house that you want answered from Dave, and he'll be here every Thursday just after 10. But I suppose just as an introduction then, Dave, maybe we might talk about the three ways that people usually build a house here in Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. So look at, just before we get into the plan and permission, and we'll kind of do a little bit of that over the coming weeks, but let's say, for instance, we've a greenfield site in Ireland, okay, and there's three different ways to build a house. You can employ a main contractor to develop that greenfield into the design that your architect is after designing for you, you know. That's probably the most straightforward way for somebody building a house, you know. Now, the only downfall of that is it costs a lot of money to hire a main contractor from start to finish. But that is the easiest method. The next method would be a kind of a self-build journey, where you would be doing something what's called direct labour. So you're technically then the project manager, and you would be hiring in people, let's say groundworks at the start, onto, let's say, the block work, roof, windows, doors. So you would then be coordinating the whole build from start to finish. This cuts out a huge lump of what the main contractor would take. Obviously, he's a lot of risk involved and everything like that, and his own wages and stuff. But this is probably one of the most complicated. Now, especially if you're not into management or project management, or you don't have any background in building, which people still do embark on this journey without any experience whatsoever. But they can get to the end. It is a bit of a headache, you know. It can take a year or 2 years, but it is doable. The last one is if you buy a doer-upper, you know. So if you buy a doer-upper house, it can be a great idea, but you would need to get a structural engineer in before you buy the doer-upper house, you know. If you buy a bad one, it can be a pit for money. So if there's something structurally wrong with the building, you know, no, the National Lottery wouldn't fund it, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah, because that often happens where people buy and then they nearly say, we had to knock it all down and start again. Does that happen regularly enough?
It actually does happen regularly enough. Now, there's two cases this year. People have came to us and they bought a derelict property. Now, you get a 70,000 grant if you buy a derelict property and you do it up. You know, if you dot the T's and or to cross the T's and dot the I's. You know, there's a lot of forms to fill out. But in two different cases this year, two customers that we had, one in Kildare, one down in Waterford, they both had to knock the house because it was structurally unsound. So they had to go back they got planning permission for an extension and a renovation, which was fine. But then when they realised halfway through the build that the building wasn't up to scratch, they had to knock it down. So there are 2 jobs that we supposed to do this year that are now gone to next year. So you do have to be very, very careful. And there's also going to be a big cost implementation and time and energy and everything else that goes along with it, you know. So just be very, very careful. You know, talk to the right people. It would be my advice on that one.
There's a message in actually from Sinead. She's down in Monasterevin. She says herself and her boyfriend are saving for a house at the moment, and they're just wondering, is there much of a difference in terms of cost of building your own home or maybe trying to buy an existing home in, say, the Monasterevin area? So the average price might be around 280,000, 300,000 down in Monasterevin. How much would you be looking at? I know it depends on how many bedrooms and all of that, but do people generally tend to see a difference in price between building and buying?
It's really down to an individual kind of base. In general, if you're able to pick up a house for 280,000 in Monasterevin, it would depend on the energy rating. I'd imagine the energy rating mightn't be great on it, because if it was let's say if it was around 380, I'd say okay, that's probably going to be an A-rated house. But around 280, she'd probably have to do her homework on that one, in the sense that if it is an old house, she could end up spending a lot on energy bills every year, you know, heating and oil and bits and pieces. So she could end up putting a lot of money into renovating or retrofitting the house with new windows, maybe solar and insulation. So it could be a good option for her, because okay, she's able to get 280,000 now. She buys the house, she saves up for 5 or 6 years while she's in the house, and you know, she's able to do it down the line. Yeah. So it really is an individual case basis.
All right, there's another one in then, and it's from Aisling in Maynooth. She says, we've a planning permission attained and are trying to get as many quotes as possible before we draw down our mortgage to proceed. We're finding it very hard for tradesmen to get back to us with quotes for different aspects of our build. We are worried as the quotes we have seem very high. How do we speed up this process? Essentially, tradesmen not getting back to them.
Yeah, and look, she can join the queue, because I'd be trying to get quotes and everything a lot of the time, and it's very, very hard to get quotes off guys that are busy. Plumbers, electricians are just, you know, are very hard. Everyone's so busy at the moment. Like the country seems to be going, you know, very well in the construction industry. All I can say to her is follow up. You know, there has been times over the last 7 or 8 years while we were in business that we were that busy. Let's say there was someone out sick or something like this. But if I see my phone going off every 2 or 3 days, I'll say, we need to talk to that woman, you know what I mean, straight away. So I would say follow up, send another email, make another text message, send or ring the person as well. And you know, as I do always say, try and get 3 quotes for the same thing. So if you can get 3 quotes for plumbing, 3 quotes for the wiring, 3 quotes for everything, you're not comparing one after the other. You have one in the middle to compare off. So it's kind of the...
Yeah, I was going to say the thing there is, it mightn't always necessarily be best to go with the cheapest quote either. You know, sometimes you often hear of, oh, well, I got this for a lot cheaper, but maybe down the road then there's more fixing to do with it. So you just kind of have to, I suppose, follow your gut, do you?
You need to do your due diligence, you know, and we're in the information age at the moment. There's a lot of information online, and sometimes it's down to maybe a bit of consultancy. People find it hard to make decisions. So if you're finding it hard, let's just say, for instance, you can't pick you have 3 quotes for wiring, and you can't figure out which one that you want to go for. You know, spend a couple of €100. €200 would probably get you, you know, electrical consultant. And he'd be able to look through those 3 quotations. You know, and if that's for a house worth 300,000 or 400,000, like that €200 is well spent. You know what I mean? And he might even be able to add in things that you've missed, you haven't seen, you know. So go to the professionals, spend a few bob on consultants, and that will make your journey on a self-build a lot easier.
Yeah, the name of your company obviously is Premier Timber Frame Homes. Grace wants to know, do you have a preferred building method apart from timber frame homes now? Do you have kind of a second favourite?
Oh, Jesus. Look, we are fond of the innovative ways of house building. So ICF is one that I've always took a liking to, but I don't have a whole pile of experience in it myself. Just for layman's terms, ICF, it starts out with an insulated raft foundation, and then it's built up nearly like Lego blocks, but they're made out of insulation. When you get up, with all the openings of the windows and doors and everything, you pour concrete into the insulation, and that creates your house structure. So that's something that I would like to do. And I see a lot of guys that has been in building over the years, building block houses, have now turned to ICF, you know, so it does seem to be another good method.
OK, James in Eden Derry says, Dave, we want to build an extension onto our house. Can we use a timber frame built extension onto our block house? Is this something that you could do? It's a good question, actually, timber frame onto block.
Absolutely. That's actually a question that gets asked quite a bit, and people do be very worried about how the timber frame seals to the block house. Yes, the answer is yes, you absolutely can. And what we do in particular is when we're putting the extension onto the end of the building, we cut back into the plaster probably about 20 mil. So our timber frame wall rebates into the wall that 20 mil, and then, you know, with a mixture of sometimes spray foam, Tech 7, and then the render on the outside itself gives a really great seal. And there's actually, it's actually not really... It's not as exposed as you think it would be, you know. And
similarly then, can you do it the other way around? If you have a timber frame home, can you build block onto timber frame, or is that a bit more difficult?
No, look, it should be generally... it's kind of nearly the same thing, you know what I mean? Obviously, once you're dealing with a good building contractor that knows his stuff, or, you know, a company like ourselves that know their stuff, you know, there should be no problem.
They're becoming more popular, aren't they, timber frame houses? Yeah,
absolutely. Like, we're finding we're definitely doing more quotations every year for timber frame construction, and especially with people living abroad, people are coming back and they see how the rest of the world are constructing their homes, and the majority of it is timber frame housing, you know.
All right. OK, what else are we... Oh, actually, there's another one in here that says, is spray foam banned, or is it banned in the UK because it was a fire hazard? Not sure if there's any law in here in Ireland.
Look, there's a lot going on with spray foam at the moment, and it's the majority of it is actually down to people putting the wrong spray foam in timber. So what happened was, a good few years ago in the UK and sometimes in Ireland, there's two different types of spray foam. One is called open cell and one is called closed cell. And they used to have like houses in Dublin that was 100 years old, and the roofs were nearly banjaxed in them. They were nearly rotten. But what the spray foam guys were advertising was, we'll go in, we'll spray foam the roof, and it'll give you an extra 20 years on the job. And if there was any leaks, they'd put this closed cell spray foam in the roof. Now, you're only supposed to put open cell spray foam near timber to let it breathe, but they were spraying closed cell onto these nearly banjaxed roofs anyway. And this went on throughout a phase of maybe 8 or 9 or 10 years across the UK especially. And what happened was the roof started to rot very, very quickly. And then the people went to the insurance company saying, oh, well, look, at me roof is rotten here. You know, I need a new roof. And then the insurance companies came out and they seen what was after happening. So if you're in the UK, not in Ireland now, if you're in the UK, insurance companies won't insure houses that has spray foam in them. But it's not for a great reason. It's for the guys that was putting in the spray foam aren't doing it correctly anyway. Right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That listener has come back in to say, you won't get insurance in the UK if you have it, which is what you've outlined as well. Listen, that's it for this morning. What are we going to be talking about then, I suppose, over the next 9 weeks here on the programme? Yeah,
look, as I say, we kind of start from the planning permission side of things. Planning permission, budget and design will be next week, and we'll move on through the steps of a self-build journey right to the end. And any questions that anyone has in the meantime, they're welcome to fire them across, whatever it may be, got to do with housing, DIY, or, you know, even got to do with apprenticeships or anything got to do with construction. Be happy to answer.
Great stuff. Good to have you back on board. Dave McManus of Premier Timber Frame Homes here every Thursday just after 10.
Dave the Builder on KFM with Premier Timber Frame Homes, your expert guide to self-built homes. PremierTimberFrameHomes.ie